today's video, I'm going to be showing you a very wearable blue Italian tile. And this video will go in depth on how to make the tiles nice and straight and even and spaced across the nail, as well as how to make that repetitive pattern going from one tile to the next, and then getting that super shiny, nice dome lacquered finish to the tiles. It's so pretty, and this technique could be used for different things like scales, and there's so many different applications. I hope you like it, and don't forget to click subscribe to see all my future videos as well.
We are going to begin by applying just a very thin white overlay across the entire nail. If you are doing this on yourself, because this is super duper wearable, it could certainly be done on anybody, basically. Any length of nail too, you could have so much fun with this. If, like I said, if that was the case, you'd probably want to have an overlay of clear acrylic underneath so that this was super strong, because you wouldn't want it to break. And there isn't a clear apex being sculpted into this. There's some different bulk, but then there's some thin areas that would be weak points. So you would want to make sure that this nail is strong enough to hold itself up without worrying about the art creating the strength. I'm going to brush that thin overlay of the white acrylic across the whole thing. If after this point, after you are at this step, if it looks uneven in any spot, go ahead and file it. If, however, you look at it and you're like, whew, that is smooth, then just continue. I am going to just continue. I have a little mechanical pencil that I'm going to start drawing the stripes for the basis of my tiles. For some reason, my pencil is a bad one and it didn't want to draw very continuously. I'm doing my best. So just make your grid across the nail. Start with 2 lines. If you have a coffin-shaped nail like I do, start from the points of the nail and continue that upward. If you have a square or any other shaped nail, just make your grid however you'd like. I liked the nice straight lines coming up from the free edge of the nail, so that's why I did it that way. I think it just looked really nice and even, like it was really meant to be that way. All of those lines you just made, those are your grout lines. After you have your grout lines done, you're going to take more white acrylic and you're going to slowly and meticulously fill in each individual square. I do have my nail a little bit angled, so the squares aren't square, they're slight trapezoid, so they get bigger towards the cuticle area and smaller towards the tip of the nail. This will create a very slight optical illusion, making it look like this nail is longer than it is. So once you've got the first square, just pick any of them. You know, you don't have to start any certain location. Pick whatever square you want to start with. After you've done the first one, move to a new location that is nowhere touching that first square you did, even by corner to corner if you can help it, depending on how many squares you have. I obviously could have done this, but I like to break my own rules, so I'm going to do one that is corner to corner. I am, however, using a very, very fast setting acrylic monomer, and so it's not like the first square that I just did is still very pliable. It's pretty much solid, so it's not as bad to work close by. After you have the next one done, you're going to pretty much understand this process. Move to a new area on the nail. So just hop around until every area is filled in. If you are doing this as part of a set of nails and you have more than one of these tiles, you could even just hop from nail to nail and do 1 square per nail, going in different locations, and then go back through to the first one, because whatever you did already would be cured, and then you could go wherever you wanted. But like I said, for me, I am just doing this one, so I'm going to try to alternate the areas that I am working on. When you're doing these side ones, if you're doing this on a person, it might be a little tricky to not touch the skin. If you are doing that and you are trying not to touch the skin, use a smaller brush than I am. This big brush works beautifully for making these nice smooth rectangles. However, it would be very difficult to not continually touch the sidewalls. So if that's the case, make sure that you are using a smaller brush, smaller bits of acrylic, and slowly building up those side tiles so that you aren't getting so much overexposure to chemicals that's really unnecessary and possibly harmful. Once you have a nice cavity, I'm going to fill in that middle square. When you are working on all of these different ones, I want to point out a couple things. One, your goal and your main thought should be on those grout lines, keeping those straight and super clean. Otherwise, like the surface of the squares, they don't have to be perfect. You can either fill them in with some more acrylic to level it out if it's uneven. You can leave them alone. Real tile that's maybe antiqued isn't perfectly smooth necessarily. Maybe it's weathered, maybe it's even cracked. So don't be so concerned about the surface. The other thing is, at the very end of this design, you will see that we will completely smooth them out. So it is not that big a deal. Just make sure that they're smooth enough that you can paint on them. If they aren't and you feel like they're too uneven, you can file them. You can file the surface of the tiles and level out the playing field if that's something that you feel is a necessary step to take. If you are going to file them, like I am clearly, I would recommend using a straight-sided barrel bit. It doesn't necessarily have to have parallel sides. It can be a slightly tapered bit if that's what you're more comfortable with. Whatever your favorite bit is, fine grit, slowly, smoothly go over and smooth out the tops of these tiles. If you want and you are available and you can, maybe try to work on single tiles at a time and not go over the whole nail, just to have a little more control over how much and where you're filing it off. They are very thin tiles, and it could be very easy to accidentally file off way too much gel and level out the texture of your tiles completely, which would defeat the purpose of all of that hard work that has already been put into this design. Once that is done, they're all filed, they're all smoothed out. Really take care to dust out the grout so there's not little bits of dust anywhere basically, and then grab your gel base coat and you're going to apply the thinnest coat possible over the surface of each tile. Try not to get the gel base coat into the tile or into the grout lines, so use just the littlest amount on the very end of your brush and very slowly brush it over the tiles, each one individually. If some gel base coat does get in the grout, it's not the biggest deal, but you don't want to flood your grout where the texture of it is gone. So just slowly, carefully apply gel base coat. Cure that, and once that is cured, grab your colors of gel paint. I really recommend using gel paint and not gel polish for making all of these because, again, we're trying not to flood the grout. And then you're going to design your blue tile pattern. I can't suggest more to look at all kinds of images of blue tile. If you just look up like repeating blue tile patterns or something along those lines, Italian blue tile, Spanish blue tile, there's so many different minute changes from one style to another. In fact, I don't even know if what I painted was exactly specifically Italian. It's what I found on the internet. So, obviously the internet doesn't lie. But go ahead and just pick some elements of tiles that you like. You do not even need to replicate one specific one that you found. I certainly didn't. I grabbed elements from different ones that I liked and start painting the first tile. After you do the first element, and for me, I liked working in the corners. That's going to be repeating from one tile to the next in that very like the continuing pattern. So finish one step on each tile, and you don't have to start on the corners. You can start wherever you'd like, but just do whatever stage of the design on each tile. Start in one place. I like to start in the middle with something like this and kind of, spider web out and broaden out where I'm working. And then after you have this part of the pattern done on all of them, so go through and just do this one step on everything, then you're going to go ahead and cure it. If your gel is one that seems like it's going to move around or it might self-level or any of that fun stuff, cure this sporadically while you're painting it. Maybe after each tile you'll have to flash cure or full cure it. Just know your product, and if you're uncertain, it's better to cure a few extra times than to work so hard on a design like this that takes a lot of patience and a lot of meticulous little lines and have it ruined, because that would be incredibly disappointing. So after I did that first section, it's all been cured. I'm going to actually continue this design with the same color. I will be using a secondary shade of blue, but I wanted to get all of this lighter blue stuff done first. I am going to, because this is a repeating pattern, it is something that even within the tiles there is symmetry and repetition. I am going to use some guidelines to make sure that everything is just as much the same as possible. As you saw, I created a little X from painting a line from, if you extended them out all the way, it'd be from corner to corner on each of the tiles, and then rounding out those lines into little petals like a 4-petaled flower. I'm going to take and fill in each of those petals. If you do something along these lines and you do have one of those repeating patterns, you want to go through all of the steps and make sure that they are as much the same from each one to each one. A lot of times I'm the kind of person that says, they're close enough for something like this. I'll just paint them and it'll all end up, nice and straight, because usually that's good enough for me. But in this particular design, and because of how important it was to me to get them so symmetrical, I'm going to make sure that I very cautiously do all the steps, cross all my T's, dot all my I's for each one. From the center coming out, I'm going to add a little pull on each flower. When you're working on the sides, this is the one place where it really isn't possible to create quite as many guidelines as with the other ones. But as you saw, I did do a little bit of that guideline just because it does really help. And then after I had the little lines created that I imagine make the crisscross for the X, I'm going to round those off as well and repeat the process and repeat the pattern for this tile. Even at this point, this is so pretty, and I know that with the darker shades really accenting the lighter blue, it'll be just unbelievable. It's one of those designs that you have to trust the process because it's a long and tedious one, and know that it will be worth it once you get there. For the next step, I'm going to take my darker shade of blue. These are the 2 shades of blue gel paint from Madam Glam, and I will put those color names in the description box below. They're pretty easy. I think it's electric blue gel paint and blue gel paint. So there's, it's not like a crazy name like some other names are. You would never know a color there. These ones are pretty straightforward. But I'm going to take that color and I'm going to do some outlining on my design as well as some other shapes just to jazz it up. This is the lines that are really the most important to try to take your time with. And I know I keep saying, take your time with everything throughout this whole design, but these dark blue lines are the thing that really stand up and out to your eye. So if there is some funkiness going on with the light blue underneath it, it really wouldn't be that noticeable. However, you do want to try to be as meticulous with your light blue underneath because it is what is going to set up the darker blue lines for success. So take that with a grain of salt and do it however feels right to you. Like I obviously, as you saw, I was really cautious with absolutely everything I did with the light blue, and I'm going to continue that with the dark blue just to make sure that everything stays as precise and repetitive as it can. I've got the little swirlies going on inside my petal shapes. I'm going to add some polka dots. Like I said, there are certain themes that kind of get seen a lot with this style of tile, and I'm going to pull from those just to find kind of what feels right to me. And I love polka dots, so I was going to definitely add polka dots. Just like with everything else, after you have one tile done, go ahead and repeat the process for the other ones. On these side corner ones, you have to kind of guess where the pattern's going to be because you don't have the whole tile to balance out the design. So you have to look at the ones around it to get all of the symmetry correct. And some of those swirls, you do not get much of the swirl at all because it's mostly cut off. But just do whatever is visible, whatever is possible. And it looks so beautiful. And to continue that pattern all the way to the very edges is part of the glamour of this design. Once you're happy with the entire tiled pattern across the whole nail, grab a bit of builder gel. This is going to be a self-leveling hard gel, and you're going to apply a coat of it over the top of one tile and then float some of that builder gel into the middle of the tile to create a beautiful dome. Once that is done and you've got it and it looks pretty good, flip the nail upside down. Leave that upside down for about 10 seconds, flip it back over, and then immediately flash cure it. This is going to give you that domed, smooth, lacquered tile effect. Once you've done one, do the rest. You're going to flash cure between each and every tile. You're doing one at a time. That includes the ones on the side. That is every single tile, one at a time. After you have the next one, make sure you apply a smooth coat over the top of the whole tile before you float it in the middle. Float the gel in the middle and then flip it over. This is the same thing for doing a hard gel overlay on a nail. Apply a thin coat of hard gel over the entire nail and then float up to build up the strength. Flash cure. Once all of them have been done thus far, go ahead and fully cure. If you want to, I recommend fully curing when you've done maybe 3, and then go ahead and fully cure them after you've done another 3. Just so that, because the flash curing is a great pause button on the gel. It holds it just long enough, but if you have ever paused a show and then turned around and it was playing again, you know that sometimes the pause button doesn't work. So you want to fully cure and make sure that it's not going anywhere. After they've all been fully cured, if you have a builder gel that doesn't require top coat, cleanse it very, very well with some isopropyl alcohol, and then that's it. That's all done. You have nothing left to do. There's no more gel applying. There's no more top coating. There's no more nothing. This one is ready. But like I said, you do have to really, really, really cleanse it because you really got to get rid of all of that inhibition layer. But then it's done and they're so smooth, and the texture running your finger or thumb down the tiles is addictive. It feels so nice. I hope you guys like this one as much as I do. It's not my usual style of something crazy and over the top and not wearable, but it was an idea I had and I am so happy with the way it turned out. If you decide to give it a try, I'd love to see your recreations, and I will see you all next time. Bye.